This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients. Active Skin Repair is something that is a staple now in our family health cabinet. My son is into mountain biking now. He's into ninja courses, and so he's getting a lot of scrapes and like burns when he like slides down the spider wall. So anytime that happens, I just go to the cabinet, we take out the Active Skin Repair, spray it on, and he's feeling pretty good. That's because Active Skin Repair uses a molecule called hypochlorous acid. When applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. It's pretty cool. So visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order, use code NOGUILT. That's activeskinrepair.com, and to get 20% off your order, use code NOGUILT. My main trigger about the whole daycare thing is that moms are under so much stress, and that the idea that you have to pick one or the other in many situations, and you can't make an option that's good for both mom and child together. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Brie Tucker.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you?
We are doing this episode on daycare. Do or don't.
Yes, exactly. I was calling it the great daycare debate, but I do think that daycare, do or don't.
Or don't.
Like, what are your thoughts on that? Discuss.
There's so much mom guilt around daycare.
Oh my God, there
is.
is.
Mom guilt around daycare. And Brie and I are going to be going into our stories and the stories we've heard from other people. But like, I have to tell you on a personal note, like both of my kids went into daycare. My daughter more so than my son, because my son, I stayed home, but both were in daycare. And even though I was like a work at home parent, he went to daycare for very many good reasons. And I'm going to get into those during this episode, but we're also going to examine like the pros and cons, because if right now, like you look back at your choices and you're like, oh, was that a good idea? Was that a bad idea? I see like so many women making decisions. I see other women actually shaming people for making decisions to put kids in daycare, as you do too, Brie.
Oh yeah. We see it all the time. And a lot of times, I have to be honest with you, I don't even think that people realize that they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're saying their feelings and they're not realizing that the way they're articulating it, or that what their feelings are, is judging those who chose an opposite option.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets really sticky. So yeah, we're here to alleviate the do's and the don'ts.
Yes.
We'll share our experience, but we're here to say whatever you choose, it'll be okay.
Yep. So let's get on with the show.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
Okay, so talking about this daycare thing, there was a member in our balance community who said that I don't want to put my child in daycare because I don't want somebody else raising my kids. And I feel that that is something that is said a lot in kind of the cons against daycare.
Yep.
That, oh, like I didn't have kids for someone else to raise them.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so we need to go back a little bit in Storyland.
And I feel like not even to even make that a bigger problem, I feel like I see it a lot in the and I'm not trying to diss, so I'm going to say that right now. If my words don't come out correctly, I sincerely apologize. I am not trying to like say anything negative towards anybody, but I do feel like that is a big message in the whole trad mom setup.
It is.
Like,
yeah,
I
trad
don't
wives. Mm-hmm.
Nobody, trad wives. Yeah, I don't want other people to raise my kids. You know, why would I buy food that was made by other people when I can make it myself?
Yeah.
I'm glad that works for you, but
I have to say, like, my view on this is totally different, because
okay.
I think some people go into parenting thinking that they're going to raise their kids in their image. So it's like little mini-me's. And I go into parenting not thinking that at all. I do not think that I am the be all end all of all knowledge, of all values. Like, I want my kids to be exposed to the world.
Uh-huh.
I want them to know all of these different cultures. I want them to know how different people react, because I think that's how you build empathy. Is you need to know other people's situations before
Mhm.
you can be completely empathetic towards them. Else, like, it's just this nameless face or scenario that happens, and you will have no understanding nor personal connection to them. So, like, for instance, I knew daycare was going to be on our plate as soon as I had kids,
Mhm.
because I need to have a purpose outside of my family. I am ambitious. I get overloaded sensory wise and mentally. And even though I love big groups of kids, being home alone and having to react to one child's needs all the time would just drive me off the deep end. So my daughter, like, I stayed home with her for 3 months, which, 12-week unpaid leave from my teaching profession.
Yep.
Thank goodness they just held my job for me and they gave it back, but I didn't get paid at all.
But like you said, at least they held it,
That's
man.
another story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
That's
whole nother
another story.
episode.
Whole other episode. At least it was 12 weeks. I mean, some people don't even get that. They
Right.
get 6.
Right.
Some people don't even get that.
Yeah. Some
Like,
people get like a couple weeks.
couple weeks, if that. But my daughter then at 3 months went to go stay with my mother-in-law until she was 6 months old. And then we did a 1 week at mother-in-law's, and like when she was sick, and then other time in daycare. And the way I found daycare was, I'm a teacher, so I knew about the National Association for Early Childhood Education.
Yep.
They go around and they accredit daycares that
Mhm.
follow their standards. And I agreed with their standards, and I looked for daycares in my area that had those. And so I found one. It was the Jewish Community Center Daycare, Barnes
Right next
Family, JCC. Shout
right
out to
next to my
them.
old
Right
house.
next.
Bree's
Yes.
kids went there too.
Yeah. And my daughter thrived in that environment. Like, when I picked her up from daycare, it was like these people were like my second, like, parenting partners. Like, they would fill me in on what she did during the day. Diana, I remember Diana there. She would fix my daughter's hair for her. Like, and as like an addition, my daughter got to like play and interact with all these other kids. So starting from 6 months old, she was already starting to socialize with all of these other playmates, and learn how to operate independently from me, which I think is really important for
Yeah.
kids to be able to do. In addition to that, she got to learn so many Jewish customs. Like, around the holidays, she was singing like the dreidel 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 songs, and like oh gosh, Sammy the Spider, I think. And we learned so many things through my daughter and through them sharing this culture with her.
Mhm.
I mean, they had Friday, they had challah bread on Fridays, and my daughter became a big fan of challah bread. Like, all of these things she was exposed to, all of this different stuff. It was a great experience, and I feel like it really helped me too, because I knew that she was safe, she was taken care of, she was happy, and I can concentrate on teaching and helping other kids reach that same state. And it wasn't that they were raising my child, they were helping me raise my child in a collective way,
Yeah.
and bring her experiences that I could not myself bring her. And that was a really great thing.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So, I would say my experience was similar and yet different. So,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, fun fact. I'm doing the math in my head while you're talking, and I'm pretty sure we both had a kid at the JCC at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And that's funny because, like, again,
Did
like,
you remember Diana? Did you
what?
remember
No,
her?
no,
Was
no,
that the
because
younger one?
we're not talking about my youngest. We're talking about my
Oh, your
oldest.
oldest.
My
Oh, that's
oldest went
interesting.
there.
Mhm.
But I digress. I'll come back to that. So, um, I knew that when I had kids, I wanted to stay home with them. Again,
Mhm.
remember my career was early childhood, so I absolutely loved the 0 to 5 age frame. That was
Mhm.
my jam. And my first pregnancy was super, super eventful. So I was on bed rest and hospitalized for a lot of it. So that ate up a lot of my time, is the point of that story. So by the time I had my kiddo, I did still have, I think, 3 months of time home with him, but realized I hadn't been at work for, I think the last time I went to work, I was 21 weeks pregnant. After that, I was
Mm.
on bed rest or in and out of the hospitals after that. So, like, I never made it back to work. And I think that that had a role in this, where I'm going. So by the time my son was like, almost 3 months, it was time for me to go back to work. And I went back to work for 2 weeks, I think, maybe. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. First of all, my job was almost an hour drive from my house when you dealt
Ooh,
with
that's hard.
traffic. Yeah, when you dealt with
Yeah.
traffic. And I was breastfeeding. So you've heard the stories of how I
Oh, yeah.
created I at that time they didn't have like the breast pump holders. So I created one out of an old bra and I would pump
Oh.
while driving in Phoenix traffic on the way to and the way home from work.
I was not breastfeeding, by the way, my daughter.
Well,
She was on formula.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I had a lot of that going on, and then but the funny part too is that while I was on maternity leave, I was a program coordinator for early intervention, and my assistant program coordinator filled in for me while I was gone. And when I came back, she was a little stressed out, but okay, yeah, still fine. And when the 2 weeks came up, I remember that same day us sitting down and talking to each other, and I'm like, listen, I got to tell you, I can't do this. I have a meeting with Kay, our boss. I have a meeting with Kay at 2, and I'm just gonna I gotta tell her I gotta quit. I can't do this. And she goes, no, I was gonna quit. And I'm like, wait, what? And then we found out that both of us were like, because she didn't live too far from me. So she also had almost an hour commute into the office.
Oh,
And
gosh.
she's like, Brie, when I took on this job, I had worked part time for years and then coming in and dropping in full time. She's like, and the other thing too is you got to remember, none of us expected me to have to leave work so soon. So she thought she still had a couple of months to get up to being ready for full time work when I had to drop out because of my eventful pregnancy. So, anyway, then we were like arguing over who got to go to our boss first to quit. And so we came in together. It was just like, okay, we hate this to you, but we both got to quit. And she's like, what? So she sat there and we came up with the idea to job share.
Uh-huh.
So we job shared. We each got to work part time. I mean, honestly, I had God's gift to work when my kids were little.
But you bring up such an interesting point, and it's really about the need for daycare because your employer allowed you
Yeah.
to be flexible
Uh-huh.
to accommodate what you needed to do as a mom and what they needed to do you to do at work. So we're going to get into more of that right after this. Losing weight can be really hard. And when it comes to prioritizing your health and feeling confident and strong, it can be really difficult to know where to start. I mean, I have been on so many things and it is hard and you lose your confidence. Hers is changing women's healthcare by providing access to GLP-1 weekly injection. Hers connects you with a medical provider who will work with you to determine your best treatment option. And through hers, weight loss plans are more affordable with GLP-1 injections starting at $199 per month with a 12-month subscription. Start your free online visit today at forhers.com/NGM. That's forhers.com/NGM for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Forhers.com/NGM. Not available everywhere. Hers weight loss includes compounded products which are not approved nor verified for safety or effectiveness by FDA. Prescription products require a provider consultation. Restrictions apply. Actual price to customer will depend on product and subscription plan purchase. Back to school season is officially here. And if you're struggling like I am, trying to get everything done, I have one thing that you can cross off your list, and that is grocery shopping and meal planning. Because HelloFresh can provide each of those for you, and they handle most of the prep too. Their meals are absolutely delicious. And if you have kids complaining about what you're cooking for dinner, you can solve that family family dinner dilemma because HelloFresh has a line of kid-friendly family options. We had this delicious corn quesadilla that my kids absolutely loved.
And Green Chef and Every Plate, they are now owned by HelloFresh. Now, with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there is something for everyone.
I have to mention for a limited time, kids eat free. They eat free. So go to HelloFresh.com/NGM kids to unlock this exclusive offer. One free kids meal per box for 2 months while your subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/NGM kids.
HelloFresh, it's America's #1 meal kit.
Here at No Guilt Mom and Inner Balance program, I am always talking about the importance of healthy habits. That is what gives you the energy to actually face all the stress you have as a mom. And one thing that I'm obsessed about is drinking enough water. Staying hydrated is so important. And that's why you've got to check out AquaTrue because its proprietary purification technology removes so many harmful contaminants, including PFAs, which are those forever chemicals, which can potentially lead to adverse health effects like cancer or liver toxicity. And the cool thing is the filters are long lasting. They last from 6 months to 2 years. AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money back guarantee and even makes a great gift. Today, our listeners receive 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU.com and enter code NGM at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use promo code NGM. Okay, so you, Bree, started on a job share.
Yeah, so I started job sharing and I worked 20 hours a week and I loved it. It worked out really great. That meant that I got to have 1 day at home, or actually I got to have 2 days at home, 2 days in the office, and like 1 half day that I telecommuted. So that was actually
Mhm.
like really perfect for me. It worked out really great for my coworker. When I did go in the office, my son went to my mom because to me, that wasn't daycare. That was
Mhm.
him spending time with his grandma. Now, was she 100% an unpaid childcare worker? Yes, she was. And I love you, mom. I love you endlessly for that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't ready to put him around people I didn't know. I wasn't
Mhm.
ready for him to pick up the germs from childcare, which is a thing that
Oh, they're sick
happens,
every
right?
week.
But
Yes.
it's good and
Yeah.
bad. It's good and bad.
It's
So
good and bad.
what flash forward, I surprisingly had a second kiddo 15 months later and again was dealt with that whole I don't want to be at work. So I worked because I had to, but my
Mhm.
ideal love was to be home with my kids. Not to say it didn't drive me freaking insane when
Mhm.
I never had a break and everything, but that really was where I wanted to be. So I did not go back to work because I was like, I love my career and I want to continue doing this. I went back to work because we needed the money.
Yeah.
So my son went to the JCC when I had my second kiddo because my mom's like, I can't do two.
Oh,
And
yeah, no, it's hard.
and
It'd
so
be too
then yeah,
hard.
so then I had a mix for most of their childhood of them being between a childcare center and being watched by family. Because again, in my head, childcare with my family was not childcare, even though it was.
Well, I mean, with my son, I knew I was taking time off, but after the first year, I found No Guilt Mom, and I wanted to devote time to that, and having time with your kids at home when you're trying to accomplish something
Is
is
almost
impossible.
impossible. Yeah.
So he went into daycare 3 times a week, and it was an amazing facility. It wasn't the JCC this time just because they didn't have that kind of option available that I wanted, but it was right next door at Bright Horizons, and they were like daycare from
Oh, yeah.
heaven.
Yeah, that
It was
was like
amazing.
to me, that was the I remember taking the kids on a tour there once, and afterwards, my daughter was like, "Can we go here?" And I was like, "Oh, honey, we're not that rich."
It it is
Because
pricey. It was
it
definitely
was 2. It
pricey.
would have been 2
It
full
was
time for
2.
me.
That
So
was
that would
that
have
was a
been
lot.
a
That
lot.
would have been a lot. Yeah, I mean, but it brings up a really great question because a lot of women do make this decision because of price and
Yeah.
cost factors. I mean, if you could have what you wanted, you would have stayed home and
Yeah.
not had to go to work. And if I would have had what I wanted, I would have had full-time daycare and I would have gone to work. The career I was thinking of anyways in entertainment, that was what I was going for before I was a teacher. I remember thinking, I don't want to be a mom in this because
Right.
I see these executives
Mhm.
coming in at 8 a.m., And then after work, they have to go to dinner and drinks to network. And they probably won't get home till 9 p.m. every day. Like they're working 60 hours a week. I'm like, that
Yeah.
is not the type of life I want to live. And I think that so many women get into that situation where employers become so flexible and what you have to do to succeed in a profession is just mind boggling that you see so many women dropping out of the profession instead of leaving their kids full time. So I'm like, I would never personally put my kids in daycare for that long, although most of them had personal nannies who become part of the family, which is great as well.
Yeah. There's so many options.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. And recently, the US Surgeon General put out a report about the stress of parenting.
Oh,
And
yeah.
absent from that report, though, is the need for affordable childcare options.
Well, because he can't go like, whoa, you're talking crazy talk there. The US having affordable childcare options? What?
Well, I mean, he does go into saying that we need to invest more in Head Start and early Head Start and those sort of things, the preschool programs. But
We do need to
before that,
invest more, but the amount of money that would need to be invested in that, Joanne, to be accessible to the entire population is insane.
it is
Insane.
and doable at the same time because there's a lot.
I'm just saying it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have to be the Head Start, early Head Start model.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's
It's
a
a
lot of
lot.
things we could do on the road to that.
I guess my main trigger about the whole daycare thing is that I think that moms are under so much stress and that the idea that you have to pick one or the other in many
Yeah.
situations and you can't make an option that's good for both mom and child together. Because as moms, like we have there's a biological tie to our kids. This has been proven time and time again. Like there's a biological tie where moms are more apt to hear babies crying because I mean, it's just like how we evolved as a species so that we knew to feed the baby. Like you feed the baby when it's crying.
Well, right.
And so you have these
Yeah,
cues.
yeah, I was gonna say, we actually have DNA within us that makes it so that it is physically unappealing to us to have a child crying around us. It like stress levels, it brings up the stress levels higher in women than it does in men, higher in moms than it does in the dad when your kid is crying. And that is from caveman times to make sure we didn't abandon those little buggers that we love.
And fun fact, many cats can mimic that cry.
Oh, yes.
And it ignite that same emotion.
Okay.
Cats.
Okay, so when I was having my kids, when they were very little and I was still breastfeeding, we had an office in the East Valley and it had cats in the ceiling.
What?
And yes, I worked for a nonprofit, man. We were lucky we had a door that shut. I mean, we'll just leave it at that. It was not the safest place. Like I didn't allow any of my staff to go there after 5 o'clock. I was like, no.
Oh my gosh.
You're out of here before then. Anyways, there were cats in the ceiling, and I remember every time the damn cats would start to cry, I would start leaking there at the office every time.
Oh, you'd start leaking? Oh,
Yes,
because I hear cats in the ceiling, and I think of that one, The Office episode, The Fire Drill,
she's
where
getting
Angela's
the
like,
cats out.
save the cat! And she
throws
and
it
the
up.
cat falls through the ceiling.
Yes.
That's what I
I
think.
remember
That's what I
having
think.
to, but it was so much fun trying to have that conversation with my main office, explaining to them why they had to get on the phone with the office management team at our remote office because
Yeah.
at least once a day I was having leaking issues due to the fact that there were cats in the ceiling. And they were like, there's a lot to unpack in this phone call.
There's
What?
a lot to unpack in that. Yes, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Well, right after this, we're going to get into more of the pros and cons about daycare. So you'll hear the do's and don'ts. And we want to hear your opinion on this as well. So DM us at
Yeah.
NoGuiltMom on Instagram and tell us what you think. We'll go after pros and cons right after this.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to bite into Nerds gummy clusters? They're fruity. They're tangy. They're gummy. And they're crunchy. Nerds Gummy Clusters, a union of fruity sweet gummy and tangy crunchy nerds. Unleash your senses. Shop now at nerdscandy.com.
Introducing our biggest GMC Acadia ever, offering bigger screens, bigger views, and even bigger journeys. Live your biggest life in the all-new GMC Acadia.
Okay, so Bree, we've talked about a lot of the cons already of daycare. We've talked about the cost. We've talked about the kids getting sick more often. Talked about how hard it is to follow someone else's schedule.
Yeah.
Especially like employers who won't move your schedule for kids, and then daycares who have their strict schedules about how to pay. And then finding quality childcare is really hard as well. Like we mentioned our tip about looking for NAEYC accredited institutions. That was my hack to find it.
Which there is a link in the show notes for anybody that's going like, what the heck are they talking about? There
What
is
the
a
heck?
link for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because I mean, the care of the daycare really, really matters. Like, I would not have just put my kids anywhere. I wouldn't. We toured probably like 4 daycares before we found the one that we were going to use.
I think, well, again, like from having worked in the field, both of us kind of had an unfair advantage that we
Mhm.
knew what to look for. So there's a couple of key points we're going to talk about here real quick on finding quality daycare. Like they talk about how you need to find a warm and welcoming environment. So in other words, if you walk in and you feel icky in your stomach, turn around and leave.
Yep,
Because
yeah.
there's nothing that place can tell you that's going
Mhm.
to make you feel comfortable about your child being there. So
Mhm.
don't do it. There's no benefit.
Yep.
You need to make sure that they have engaging activities, age appropriate toys and activities for kids, social emotional support for the kids. You walk in and they're screaming at the kids saying, "We don't cry. What are you, a sissy?" Maybe turn around and leave. That's
Yeah, turn around
not
and
good
leave.
social emotional support.
No.
Not great. And I'm half joking. In my other career, I did see stuff like that. And I was like, mental note, never go to this childcare.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have to have like a regular schedule for children. They need to have a consistent schedule and it needs to be clean. I
Mhm.
know that sounds weird, but those are things that, sometimes you're like, oh, well, it's a one-time thing. No, if it's not clean when you're there on a tour, it's not clean any other time. So,
Something that I look for is how happy the staff was, because you could
yeah.
tell a lot about the place with how
Mm,
happy the providers were. If the
right.
providers were unhappy, there is something going on there. They cannot shield that from the kids.
Well, if
They
the
can't.
providers are unhappy, how much patience are they going to have with your kid?
Yeah. It means the providers, they're not being treated well at all
Yeah.
by either upper management, or maybe they're being asked to do stuff they don't want to do, or asked to do stuff that is unsafe and they're against, which happens a lot in school situations and childcare facilities, unfortunately.
So I have to throw in this last con because it's a perceived con. And I'm saying it's perceived. It's not necessarily true. So a lot of people will also tell you, I don't want my kid to go to daycare because then they're going to learn to bite. They're going to learn to scratch. They're going to learn to say bad words. I'm not saying that kids don't pick up things in a social setting. That is true. But studies have shown that doesn't necessarily happen. I mean, there has been research. You can find research on any perspective that you want to support. But they did do research recently. Oh gosh, I need to find like the link on this one. But researchers looked at data from 7 different studies, including more than 10,000 toddlers and preschoolers across 5 different countries. And they found that kids who spent more time in group child care settings were no more likely to exhibit aggressive behavior or bad behavior than the kids who weren't there.
Mhm.
So, like, I'm going to argue that the whole kids picking up bad behavior doesn't necessarily happen at childcare. And I know a lot of people believe that. And that might have been your experience. And that is totally fine. But
Yeah.
statistically, it's not a thing.
It's not. It's not.
Okay. So, what are some of the pros?
Well, the pros, I feel like, first of all, you get your time back to be you.
Yeah.
And that is not to be said lightly, because it sounds, and even me saying it come out of my mouth, I'm like, oh my gosh, how selfish are you, Joanne? Like, but that was something I felt so hard as a new parent. Like, I
Yeah.
felt I didn't exist anymore, that I was just here to make sure that the child was taken care of. Like, I felt a blob of myself too. I didn't even recognize what I wanted anymore. I was so afraid of what she needed. I needed my own life back. And I needed to actually show my daughter what a life looks like, because that's
Yeah.
what I want kids for. My husband and I were talking about this when we first had kids, and I never wanted to be somebody who stayed at home full time with kids, because there's a lot of things like the people who should have kids are the ones who are doing things and can show the kids exactly how things are done, and who also like want to spend time and to teach kids how to do the things. And so I always wanted to be that role model for my daughter, to show her exactly what's possible. Now, fast forward to her being a teenager, and she wants nothing to do with what I do whatsoever. But I mean, that's just teens, honestly. It's what happens. Actually, she is thinking about being a teacher. She really likes working with kids. So take that. And she doesn't
That's
even
cool.
know. Another thing we mentioned is socialization. Just being able to be around other kids, being able to like figure out like what other people like, practice that pro-social behavior, find issues that might pop up. I mean, there's a lot of things that childcare providers who are really, really knowledgeable can help you with as a parent. One of those
Oh,
huge things is potty
potty
training.
training. It is a lot easier to deal with potty training when your kid is in childcare full time. I just gotta tell you, it's
Some places, like some preschools, require kids to be potty trained before they come in. Don't go
yes,
for that.
that's because that's a preschool, not a
Okay.
daycare. There are
Not a daycare.
differences. But again, if you're working on potty training and the childcare where you're taking your child works on potty training, that will help you so, so much because again, you have that whole social learning aspect of it and you also get a break from it. Another interesting fact, I don't know if it's still current, but I know that 10 years ago when I was in the early childhood, the second highest rate of traumatic brain injuries for children was during potty training time. And that was traumatic brain injuries from parents disciplining their child for having accidents
Oh,
because it is such a high stress time
it is a high stress time.
of dealing with it that is the second highest rate of brain injuries are
That's
children that are in potty training.
insane. But
Mhm.
it's true. It's
Yeah.
horrible. I remember pouring myself a glass of hard cider when I was potty training my daughter. And I followed my my aunt-in-law
Yeah.
her recommendations about filling her up with juice and double stacking the underwear and just let it go. And
Yeah.
it's a lot.
I remember that at least like 3 or 4 cases while I was like working with my kids were in that age group of kids that were in our local media in Phoenix that were killed because I mean killed like didn't even just have the traumatic brain injury, died from their traumatic brain injury because
I've
of abuse from caregivers during potty training. So it can be stressful. So I'm just saying it can be stressful. It can't be overlooked on that end that it helps. And you know
Now,
what else?
a
Oh, go ahead.
I have to interject here because a
Yeah.
well-run daycare knows how to potty train and will
Oh,
not inflict
yes.
these injuries. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to point out that it's a stressful time.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all.
it is.
By the way, the kids that were hurt by their caregivers, it wasn't a daycare that hurt
Mhm.
them. It was a different caregiver. One was mom's boyfriend, another
Oh.
was a dad, and I forget. I think the other one was a mom or a grandparent.
That's
So
so
I mean, it
sad.
happens. I just anyway. But okay, so back on to another pro for childcare, immunity buildup. So like, yes, it is hard and it's annoying when they're getting sick in the very beginning when they're around all these new germs, but your kid is going to be able to have a much better immune system. That's just the honest to God truth.
It does
So
happen. It's like the same as being a teacher. My first year teaching was the most awful health-wise. I got sick every other week. And then it's like
yeah.
nothing could get me. No,
Well,
like
and like even right now, right? Like our kids went back to school and our kids caught this back to school cold because they hadn't been around people as much during the summer and then took us both down.
it took us down.
Man, like it happens. Another big thing is that kids learn adaptability,
Yeah, the
right? Like,
whole world does not focus on them, which is a big thing.
yeah, they learn how to roll with the punches, how to change things up. Childcare gives them the abilities to practice those skills and see success in them. We're not saying you can't do it at home, but they get more opportunities more likely when they're in a childcare setting with these different factors. So
Yeah, I think there are so many do's. I mean, as I said, like both of my kids went to daycare. I absolutely loved it. And they
yeah,
loved it too. And they have only great things to say when, because they stayed at the same facility until they moved on from preschool, because they did preschool and daycare there.
yeah.
And both of them liked where they were at, had a great experience, had great memories. So it was a
So
win.
yeah. So like I really would love to have you guys leave us some feedback on this episode. Tell us what you thought. Did you put your kids in daycare? Did you not put your kids in daycare? Did you like having them in daycare? Did you not like having them in daycare? Are there any pros or cons that we missed? And then the last message that I know both Joanne and I want everybody to hear us say as crystal clear as possible is that you do what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Putting your kid in daycare or not putting them in daycare is completely fine. There are positives to both aspects, and it is okay. You're not going to break them either way.
Because remember, the best mom is a happy mom. So take care of you, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.